The next 2 weeks are make or break for Arteta's season at quite a crucial juncture in his managerial career, I think.
I think it is one of my favourite ever footballing achievements, at least since I've worked in football. I think it really is that special. Hello and welcome back to Monday Vibes, everybody, where we discuss the biggest results and talking points from across Europe. And we will be touching on Europe, the big story in Europe. But first, let's get into the Premier League. But before we get into that, look who's back on your screens. Mikey McCubbin, how are you?
Yes, very well, thanks, Diggs. Very well, thanks. Had some nice time off.
In España?
But back in España, in Spain for two mammoth Champions League ties last week in terms of the Spanish teams. Not necessarily making progress in the Champions League, but may well be this week. Good results for Spanish teams in Europe last week. They say that La Liga, has taken a nosedive, but better than the Premier League, clearly.
Proof is in the pudding.
Because there may well be no English teams in Europe aside from Aston Villa come the end of this week, and there may well be 3 Spanish teams in the semi-finals. I'm good, thanks, Dukes. Nice to be back. How about yourself?
Great to have you back. Yes, I'm very good indeed. This is the second time we're filming this because the sound corrupted on the last one, annoyingly. But we should be well versed. Let's get into it. We're talking, first of all, the title race in the Premier League. Mikey, pretty seismic day.
Huge.
Let's start with events at the Emirates. Aston Villa coming away with their second consecutive league win against Arsenal. 2-0 victors. Huge moment.
Huge moment. I mean, first of all, shouts out to Unai Emery, of course. We've spoken about him a lot this season, but to do the double over Arsenal in your first full season back in the Premier League after the nature of his departure from Arsenal, ridiculed by fans, etc., unfairly, it was an ill-fated time there to come back and do the job that he's done at Villa and to get one over on your former employers. And really bask in the glory as well. I think massive respect to him. And I think tactically in this game he got it spot on. Rode out a little bit of a storm in the first half. I think Mikel Arteta was pretty generous to say that it could have been 4 or 5 by half time.
Not get that.
They did generate a good 1.75 XG in the first half. So they did have the better of it, Arsenal. Villa didn't really have much of a sniff in the first half. The Watkins chance that comes off the inside of the post actually is a pretty good chance, and comes as a result of a kind of altercation between Gabriel and Zinchenko. Call it altercation, mistake, error, whatever. So there was a chance there, but in terms of Arsenal certainly got more shots away. I think it was 14 shots to 5, but they only put 3 on target. The only real proper clear-cut chance they had was Leandro Trossard's, which was saved brilliantly by Emi Martinez in that first half. And so it felt like the sort of game that Arsenal should have won, but equally, over the last few months, in the period of time that Arsenal have really set themselves out as probably the most consistent team in the Premier League, they've usually been leading by half-time. And they've been able to, manage games in the second half rather than be chasing a winner. They went in 0-0. And the second half, Villa came out and were the better side. For that second half, I think they had more shots than Arsenal in the second half. They had more possession than Arsenal at the Emirates in the second half. And they had the better chances in the end. And Leon Bailey and Ollie Watkins obviously making it 2-0 in the end. A bit of a late game collapse from Arsenal defensively, I thought. Alexander Zinchenko losing the ball to Yuri Tielemans before he, almost scores with that quite speculative but brilliant curling shot. It hits the bar in the post. Declan Rice not picking up Leon Bailey at the back post, then Ollie Watkins going through for the second. Emil Smith-Rowe somehow the last man back there, and he's having to chase him down. It's just a number of errors there. Also to let Watkins get through there and be onside because he's in his own half. It's just not what we've been used to seeing with this Arsenal defence. I think you do have to credit Villa because they rode out that first half and were the better team in the second half. I think that they were deserved winners. I don't think Arsenal really have many excuses. Villa were under strength in terms of who was available to pick. Douglas Luiz out of this game with a ban. Of course, the other injuries that they're having to contend with at the moment, in particular, Boubacar Kamara. I think it was just really, really well deserved. But yeah, huge moment now because Arsenal have some tough fixtures coming up in quite a short space of time. City now have the initiative, 2 points clear. And at this stage of the season, City do usually get the job done when they're ahead at this moment.
We've been here before.
We've been here many times before. I mean, 4 times in a row would be a pretty crazy achievement for City. No one has obviously done that in the Premier League era. I'm not sure if anyone's ever done that actually in English football. Full stop. I'm not sure if anyone's done it.
No, I don't think so.
I'm not actually sure if anyone's done it over 3 times in a row. Let us know back home if we've got that wrong. But by my calculations, I don't know if anyone has done.
Liverpool maybe, but I don't think so.
I don't know if Liverpool. I don't even know if Liverpool managed a 3-peat in the 80s. I think Huddersfield Town managed it. I think under was that? Yeah, I think Huddersfield Town managed it. I think Arsenal may have managed it in the 30s as well, and then Man United obviously
under Mr. Herbert Chapman.
Herbert Chapman. I think I might be wrong there, but then I think United managed it twice under Fergie. I'm not sure if there's
the 3-peat. Sorry, I thought you were talking about 4-peat.
Oh no, 4-peat. I don't know if anyone's done 4-peat, but anyway, let's not dwell on that because I don't actually have the facts at my fingertips there. But yeah, Dukes. I mean, obviously, yeah, huge blow for Arsenal. Where do you think they particularly come unstuck? Are there any performances that stuck out to you as being particularly poor from an Arsenal perspective?
Yeah, I think it's worth touching on maybe team selection briefly. I mean, it's so easy with the benefit of hindsight, but I think Declan Rice has been better than Kai Havertz in that left-sided 8 role this season. And I think Kai Havertz has been better, at least in the few months, than Gabriel Jesus up front. And there was a stat that Sky put on screen during the second half about their goals per game with Jesus versus Havertz, their points per game with Jesus versus Havertz starting as a centre-forward. And Havertz is ahead in every metric. And I don't mean to put this all on Gabriel Jesus, because unlike there was a chance in the first half actually where he goes for the near post, which Saka also did, going for the near post in the first half. It felt like they weren't just creating enough, taking enough of their opportunities in the first half, to be totally honest. I do agree with Arteta that they played well in the first half, but I think he exaggerated to the extent that they were dominant. I think they were the better side. I thought Odegaard was particularly impressive. Him having to go off in the second half with a knock, by the sounds of things, is a big blow. But it was just a really un-Arsenal 23-24 week. You know, the mistakes against Bayern Munich, despite dominating huge swathes of that game, the mistakes against Aston Villa in a game that they seemed like they had the initiative, was just hugely disappointing. And, you know, Arsenal were pretty much full strength in this game. Villa were not. They also had 2 days longer to prepare because Villa had played in the Europa League on Thursday. And yes, you might say Lille in the Europa League's not as big a contest or competition as Bayern Munich in the Champions League. And of course it's not. But days, every second counts when you're on this sort of schedule of European fixture, midweek, weekend. And I thought Villa, to weather the storm, to really come through, particularly some players in that, like Diego Carlos, I thought was probably his best ever game for Villa, and to come back from the severity of injury that he had and perform like that, I thought was really, really impressive. Ezri Konsa was great as a right back as well. But for Arsenal, the same players are taking stick. It's Gabriel Jesus taking a bit of stick, but it's mainly Alexander Zinchenko taking a bit of stick. Not been the ideal second season in an Arsenal shirt. A lot of Arsenal fans saying they've already kind of moved beyond Zinchenko as a starting left back, and it's not his position, to be fair. He does a decent job at it, but maybe they should be looking at a starting quality left back. The thing is, with Jurrien Timber coming back from injury, who can play in that role, with Jakob Kivior like deputising pretty effectively there this season, do they want to push them further down the pecking order? I'm not so sure, but yeah, huge blow for Arsenal, and it puts an unnecessary amount of pressure on their midweek game against Bayern, because to be honest, if you lose to Bayern Munich away from home, I think in any normal situation, people would just be like, that just happens in the Champions League. But given the fact that they went into that tie as such overwhelming favourites, or according to their own fans, overwhelming favourites, to throw away a number of opportunities against them in the first leg and concede some sloppy goals, then lose to Aston Villa at home with 2 goals conceded in 4 minutes, and then lose to Bayern Munich in this hypothetical scenario, that's alarm bells ringing. That's, you've got crisis point at Arsenal, however ridiculous that is after the form and season
or at least it's a big blow to morale, right? I don't know.
Huge.
It's not like Arteta suddenly.
Oh,
panicking,
no.
But it is.
Crisis point
is our season over? Yeah. Like it is that for sure. It is that for sure. And I mean, you say that it's like they've got Wolves away next week, and then they've got Chelsea at home next Tuesday, and then they've got the North London derby. So there is a danger now that, if they don't turn things around quickly, and yet they've got to do that against Bayern, that there could be a bit of a snowballing of players losing confidence quite quickly. So I think it's, in terms of his kind of dressing room management, like I think the next 2 weeks are make or break for Arteta's season at quite a crucial juncture in his managerial career, I think, because I think Arsenal don't want to come second twice in a row. That sets a bit of a precedent, doesn't it? And this City team, this is the most gettable City team, I think, in the last 2 or 3 years. I think the City team is not as special as it was last year. Erling Haaland has not had the season that he had last year. Kevin De Bruyne has barely been available for selection for most of the season.
Their midfield hasn't been quite right, I think.
Their midfield hasn't been great. Their defence has been incredibly open. Like, this is as gettable a City team as we've seen, really, in the peak Guardiola era, at least there. So I think this is, this does feel at the moment like an opportunity missed for Arsenal. We weren't expecting it, were we? And I guess, speaking of unexpected results, Liverpool 1-0 to Crystal Palace. Another result that hands City the initiative in the title race. I think maybe there are a few more excuses from a Liverpool standpoint, just because in terms of their team, they are not as full strength as Arsenal. They have had to contend with more injuries. We had Trent coming back in this game, Alisson coming back in this game. That's quite a lot of players coming back. Maybe not, a little bit rusty, not at optimum fitness level, not at optimum match sharpness. But nevertheless, it's Crystal Palace, who have been wildly inconsistent this season, pretty poor for much of the season. I know that they have made some improvements under Ole Glasner, but still they were chasing the game for the vast majority of it. Down 1-0 after 14 minutes. I mean, that Everett Eze goal, we didn't speak about that. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I think 21 passes in the build-up. Were you saying off camera, was it 8?
Well, I think the final 8 are all one touch.
All one touch. And I was thinking, I don't think I've seen as good a one-touch team goal in the Premier League this season. And it's come from Palace. This is a
Tiki-taka Palace.
Yeah, this is a league that contains, Pep Guardiola's Arsenal and Pep Guardiola's City, and Mikel Arteta's Arsenal, and it's Palace pulling something like that out the bag. But equally, we talk about defences coming unstuck. Like, I don't think that's a goal that Liverpool should be conceding at home to a club of Crystal Palace's stature. Like, I'm not sure whether who should be picking up Eze in that situation, whether it's Endo or whether it's Konate, whether Konate is out of position there, or should be, because Van Dijk's kind of covering the space behind him. Should Konate actually be pulling back a little bit towards Eze?
Kind of in no man's land.
Yeah, kind of in no man's land. So that will be a sticking point for Liverpool. Again, though, they had opportunities. They had so many opportunities in this game, Liverpool, didn't they? Like, big chances falling to Salah, big chances falling to Nunez, big chance falling to Curtis Jones at the end.
That was the big one. I think. That was the biggest.
Huge. And that really would have, got kind of Anfield rocking, wouldn't it?
I think there's about 15 minutes to go. Yeah,
that would have been really big shift in the game. But equally, they gave up a lot of chances as well. Like, Jean-Philippe Mateta should come out of this game with a brace, but Andy Robertson just absolutely world class, getting back onto the line there for that dinked effort, and then Alisson saving at point blank range in the second half from him as well. Like, Palace had more than their fair share of opportunities. I think they created over 2 XG at Anfield, which, from a Liverpool perspective, by Liverpool standards, is not good enough. There's a lot to pick apart in this loss. But Dukes, I mean, we've spoken a lot about Liverpool here. Is there anyone from Palace you want to give a shout out to? Because it was, a great performance from Glasner's side.
Yeah, I mean, similar to Aston Villa, I think you've got to give credit to the away team. So many times when a big six side loses, particularly at home, that's the storyline. When in this example, and with Aston Villa, I think there needs to be so much credit to the tactical plan and the personnel for pulling off a masterful win. Their commitment to the cause was pretty faultless, really. That Klein block, Tyreek Mitchell nicking the ball off Salah with about 2 yards before the goal line, with the goal sort of gaping. I think Salah should shoot a bit earlier, but that was huge. Henderson made a magnificent save in this game as well, and he's not even been their first choice this season. It's Sam Johnson, and they didn't have Mark Gehi, they haven't had Chris Richards, so their back line was Nathaniel Klein as a right-sided centre-back. Joachim Andersen, I thought, was brilliant, as he tends to be in these sort of style of games. And their left-sided centre-back was Jefferson Lerma from midfield. And Tyreek Mitchell, I thought, was absolutely excellent as well. Obviously provides the assist for the goal as well, but was, absolutely crucial. 3 tackles, 5 clearances on the day. And let's talk about Adam Wharton as well, coming in January from Blackburn. I can't remember the last time I saw a championship central midfielder adapt to the Premier League so seamlessly mid-season. I think it's the hardest position to play in the Premier League. Everyone talks about the pace of the Premier League. That's where you feel it the most, in the central of midfield. And I think he has adapted really, really well there. I think it was 6 tackles on the day, 88% pass accuracy, just pretty faultless now. And I think a lot of rival fans and Palace fans will be delighted to have him. I think rival fans will be annoyed that they didn't snap him up. For £20 million, that already looks like a great deal. He does look like a player that's got potential to play for England one day. And given the fact that Ole Glasner had only won 1 of his previous 6 games, which was against Burnley when they had 10 men, this was a huge result to beat Liverpool at Anfield, who haven't lost in the league there since October 2022 against Leeds. Massive performance. And there's an amazing stat. I think it's that Eze and Elise have started 5 games together in the league this year.
Mad.
And one of them has contributed a goal in every single one of them. And they are just a very different side with both of them playing. Respect to Jean-Philippe Mateta as well, because Odsonne Edouard actually started this season on absolute fire. No one really remembers it now, but he did start really, really effectively. And Mateta has proved his worth working under a manager who has Bundesliga experience. Obviously, Mateta joining from Mainz a few years ago. But for Liverpool to have... They created 10 XG in their last 3 games, and they've scored twice.
Yeah.
I think they let themselves down against United, if I'm totally honest. I know that the narrative around that is always interesting, isn't it? Because they created far better opportunities, but that was a big error against United to drop 4 points against United this season. Not good enough. Blown away by Atalanta on Thursday, probably their weakest performance. I can't really remember a weaker one, to be honest, under Klopp, because in that 2021 season, they were missing about 5 players at every time. It was a really shambolic performance. They were quite bad
at points last season as well, but I think especially in Europe, I can't think of a worse one.
Yeah, it was huge. And then on Sunday, big opportunity. I mean, to keep pace with Man City, or keep in front of Man City, I should say, who had a fairly routine win against Luton, and they've blown it. And it now feels, of all the title contenders, it now feels hardest to imagine Liverpool winning the league. Which is interesting, I think, given the fact that they've just had Trent back, they've had Alisson back, Salah's now back. But Salah's form needs to be looked at as well. I don't think he's performed anywhere near his best. Nunez has now scored 1 goal in 6 games. He is missing big chances. It is the nature of his game. But, at a time where Liverpool needed one of their front men to really step up and carry them through the latter stages of a campaign that has seen them play a huge amount of games, they've all just gone a bit cold at the wrong time. And Jota, partly due to that fact that Jota is probably the most clinical striker and he's been missing the most games recently as well. It now looks really difficult for Liverpool. I mean, after Atalanta on Thursday, they've got Everton away. They've also got to play West Ham away, Spurs at home, Villa away and Wolves at home. If you win the title with that run of games, having just lost to Crystal Palace at home, I take my proverbial hat off to you. That is an incredibly difficult run of games. So I can't really see them doing it. Yeah, it feels like City's to lose now, which is crazy to say given there's only... It's not crazy to say, but the gap feels bigger than 2 points after this weekend, which I think is it is interesting. But let's see what happens there. Liverpool fans, how are you reflecting on that? Let us know in the comments. Let's move over to a title race that is done, that is finished. Bayer Leverkusen are the Bundesliga champions. Bayern Munich 12 in a row, not happening, mate. Bayer Leverkusen got over the line. 5-0 win against Werder Bremen. They were absolutely sensational, Mikey, and it is a richly, richly deserved title win, isn't it?
Massively deserved. I think this game really typified that. There have been points this season, I think especially in January sort of time, even in March as well, where they were not at their best, Leverkusen, and looked like they were beatable. But they came through. They came through those games. Thinking Karabag in the Europa League as well. The shit games. But yeah, those last minute equalisers and winners in those really felt like quite a crucial moment in the season in terms of remaining unbeaten, keeping that momentum up, keeping the good feeling around the club. As was, I think, the timing of Xabi Alonso's decision to stay at the club. I think it couldn't have come at a better time. We talk about Liverpool just now. I think that Klopp news was really, really, huge news, wasn't it, back at the end of January? And there was a lot of chat about whether that would galvanise the squad or whether it put too much pressure on them. I wouldn't look into it too much, but I do think that a Liverpool squad from years gone by, one containing Jordan Henderson, one containing Firmino, Mane, the more strong core of that Champions League and Premier League winning side, maybe react in a stronger way to that than a team which is containing a lot of new players that is in transition in a number of areas. I think that's it is a lot of pressure for some of those players to take, whereas I think an announcement like Xabi Alonso's confirming that he's staying there next season on the partly on the proviso that he gets to keep this team together, I think takes a lot of pressure off at this point. And it seems to have worked wonders. They've yesterday against Werder Bremen was just like a party from the word go, wasn't it? Good friend Zach Jalab was there.
He was there,
and he said, that came out of the blue as well. Didn't announce that, did he? He just sent us a video of him
Leverkusen.
And he said that everyone there was on the beers from about 9 a.m, which I guess is understandable, isn't it? First major trophy since 1993, first ever Bundesliga title for them, and yeah, what a performance as well. I mean, they just absolutely toyed with Werder Bremen. Nathan Teller, brilliant in the first half on the right. His ball into the box, forcing that penalty that Victor Boniface puts away. Granit Xhaka then, after what has probably been the season of his career, with that absolute screamer to make it 2-0. Then Wirtz with that knuckleball from open play. I thought the TV cameras couldn't pick it up. It looked so weird going in. And then to top it off with a second half hat trick for Wirtz. Just absolutely remarkable. And we spoke about Villa earlier and what Unai Emery has done there. Like Xabi Alonso, I guess more impressive, but like similar kind of thing. They both took over these clubs in October, November 2022. Both of those clubs were in relegation trouble at the time. One of them looks pretty odds on to make the Champions League, and one of them has won the Bundesliga, the first non-Bayern team to win the Bundesliga since Jurgen Klopp's Dortmund in 2011-12. Just absolutely remarkable stuff, and just a game that was really typical of Leverkusen's season. Just like absolutely dominant. Didn't let Werder Bremen have a sniff at all, really. And I think that's, they did score 5 goals, but I think that's something that kind of goes unnoticed a little bit, is just how good Leverkusen have been defensively, and how much Alonso's football is actually like a defensive tactic. Kind of when we talk about kind of peak Pep at Barcelona and stuff, yes, a lot of goals were scored, but really the key was that the opposition just couldn't get near them, couldn't get opportunities. And it was a similar case in this game. 20 shots, 10 on target. Leverkusen only managed 3 shots on target all game. It's an out of form Werder Bremen side, but nevertheless, just the perfect game from Leverkusen.
Yeah, it really was. And what has been the perfect season? Now 43 games unbeaten. The record in European competition, in all competitions, is Benfica with 48. In 1963 to 1965, which is remarkable.
That's mad.
And
that was a Benfica side that won 2 European Cups
back-to-back European Cups. Yeah, under Bela Gutmann, who then put a curse on the club that they'd never win another European trophy for another 100 years.
But there'll
be no cursing this Bayer Leverkusen side, and it is worth.
We were worried, weren't we, that you might have put a curse on Leverkusen.
We were worried, but I did go there, and I didn't curse it. which was great to see. The Critchley curse has been lifted. But in all seriousness, for Bayer Leverkusen to come through, they've got such a reputation. Bayer Leverkusen, the throwing away of a treble 22 years ago, to come through with all this pressure on them under a novice coach in his first full season as management. I think it is one of my favourite ever footballing achievements, at least since I've worked in football. I think it really is that special. And they are strong favourites against Kaiserslautern in the DFB Pokal, and they are strong favourites in the Europa League as well. They've got Milan or Roma, assuming they get past West Ham, which feels like a formality in the semi-finals. I back them against both those sides. They've got Atalanta, Benfica or Marseille in the final. That feels easier than their semi-final.
Don't write off Liverpool just yet, but it does, yeah.
I think it's done. Yeah. But it is remarkable, and it is a huge credit to the Leverkusen organisation. This Bayern Munich side, they still scored the most goals in Europe's top 5 leagues. Like they are, and as Arsenal showed this week, or had proven to them this week, they are no mugs whatsoever. They've probably got the best striker in Europe right now. They definitely do. And they've got a plethora of brilliant attacking players. They've got more world-class talent man-to-man than Bayer Leverkusen. But it just feels like Leverkusen just absolutely nailed their recruitment last summer in a way that I haven't seen a club do in a long, long time. Xhaka, Grimaldo, Teller, Hoffman, huge impacts from all of them. The way he's Boniface, of course. The way he's improved Jeremy Frimpong. The way that Florian Wirtz has gone to an even higher level than ever before. I think it's 18 goals and 17 assists in all competitions this year. Bayer Leverkusen, 43 games unbeaten, could finish an entire season unbeaten, could win 3 trophies. He's got to be in the Ballon D'Or conversation. I think he's got to be right up there. And a lot of it, Mikey, will probably depend on how well Germany do in the Euros. But he's got to be in the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, if he ends up with 3 trophies, the best, the jewel of this side, Germany go, he makes an impact at the Euros, and say Germany gets to the semi-finals or the finals, which I think is perfectly possible. They've got one of the best coaches, in the competition, if not the best coach in the competition, tactically at least. It's a home competition as well. Like Germany, should be one of the favourites. I know they've been hit and miss over the last 12 months or so, or longer. But yeah, I think he has to be in the conversation, especially the fact that there's just the competition for the Ballon d'Or this year. I don't think is as strong as it has been in seasons past. Last year was Messi's last time winning it, let's face it. But Erling Haaland probably deserved it, based on winning a treble. It was madness. But Erling Haaland, I don't think, is in the running for it this year. I mean, no. I say that Man City are still in contention for a treble, depending on what happens this week.
Yeah, but then I think you're pushing forward Foden and you're pushing forward Rodri.
You probably are. And he's obviously not going to be involved in the Euros either, Haaland. And then who else? Like Jude Bellingham, if he wins the Champions League and has a good Euros. Harry Kane. But I think it largely depends on what Bayern do in the Champions League now, because without
the Champions League, they're not going to give it to him.
Yeah, without a league title, it's hard to see it going to him. And then across Europe, Mbappe? If Mbappe wins the Euros with France, maybe
Griezmann, if Atleti reach the final, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a lot more of an even contest. And Florian Wirtz, I think, even though I still feel like Florian Wirtz is not necessarily a household name with casual fans even now, which is pretty mad to say, but I think that just goes to show how kind of underappreciated the Bundesliga can be, especially if you're not playing for Bayern Munich. But by the end of this calendar year, I think Florian Wirtz very much will be a household name. I think also he's kind of overshadowed a little bit in the Bundesliga by someone like Jamal Musiala. And yeah, the likes of Bellingham and Pedri, players around his age who have, played for bigger clubs and maybe had bigger moments in bigger games earlier in their career. But there's no doubt that Florian Wirtz has been, probably in the top 5 most outstanding players in Europe this season.
Absolutely, and to come back from that ACL injury as well at 20 and still get back to this sort of level so quickly, really, really remarkable. So massive congratulations to Bayer Leverkusen from everyone here at Football Daily and everyone here at Sky. It is a great story. In the same way that I think most neutrals would like to see Man City's reign come to an end. This one has gone on for nearly 4 times as long.
Crazy. From
Bayern Munich. Credit to them as well. Amazing consistency. They haven't been at their best in the last few years as well. Nearly lost it on the final day last year, but it wasn't a Dortmund side of Aubameyang, Sancho, Haaland, Bellingham. It wasn't Nagelsmann's RB Leipzig. It was Xabi Alonso's Bayer Leverkusen that brought it to an end and smashed it.
Yeah.
16 points with 5 games to go. It could end up being by over 20 points.
Yeah.
No one would be surprised. But guys, that's all we've got time for on our second attempt at this Monday Vibes. Hopefully this one's worked. I'm sure it would have.
Hopefully.
If you enjoyed this episode, go check out Sunday Vibes as well. Myself and Joe ran through some hidden gems from around Europe that you can sign for around £30 million. We're a little loose with that, but go check it out and we'll catch you later in the week. Bye-bye.